It's so interesting seeing these numbers on paper. It's like, oh, I'm going to make a hire. But then as you start to look at the experience and skill sets of the people, it's like, okay, well, how many interviews? 5 to 10, depending on the range. Well, how many screens do I need to make? 25 to 100. And you start to see this gap that just keeps getting wider and wider. Definitely some aspirational stuff to want to level yourself up and know that like as you get better, you absolutely will get more efficient. It will get easier.
Initiating becoming a hiring machine sequence in 3, 2, 1.
Hello, Viv. Welcome back for Tactical Tuesday. It's been a minute since we've done one of these. I know we pulled from your and Logan's recording for the last couple of weeks, and I'm excited to jump back in with you.
Yeah, I'm excited to be back. We just talked about it. We're like, we haven't seen each other in forever.
I know. It's been too long. It's been too long. And it's a good one today, too. It's going to be ratios. So you and I have talked about this before, where we'll just we'll subtly say it in passing. We're just like, if you know your ratios, you can be able to do X, Y, Z or whatever. But we've never defined like, what's a good ratio? Like, what should I be aiming for? What's best practice? What's average? Like, how do we think about this within the scope of Loxo or whatever workflow? So we're going to unpack that today a little bit. We'll talk about it from both ends of the spectrum. Like, what's a good ratio if like, you're just getting started with recruiting versus, hey, I've been doing this for years. I'm an expert. I've got it down. And then we're going to do a follow-on series that'll pair off of this. Like, once you understand your ratios, and if you see like, I want to optimize this specific part of it, we're going to have a mini series that'll go into each of those. So I'm going to stop talking now and pass this over to you, Viv, to start to get into.
Let's do it. So to preface this, I'm going to give you 2 types of ratios. One is you are brand new to recruiting, absolute rookie, you have no idea what you're doing, all the way to expert. These are numbers that you should be aiming for. These are going to change from one search to another. And when I learned about these metrics, one of the notes in my notebook that I wrote down is the numbers don't change unless professional development changes the recruiter and their behavior. So keep that in mind with all of these numbers. So just to jump into it, there's 3 ratios that you really want to take a look at. The first one is how many open jobs you get and how many you actually fill. So job orders to placements. How many open jobs do you need to have to actually make placements? Just because you have an open job doesn't mean that you're going to make a placement. And it might just be something that is entirely out of your control. They lose budget, there's a reorg, it gets canceled, they randomly get a referral from an internal employee who's a friend of an aunt, and suddenly it gets taken away. Maybe a competitor randomly swoops in, you had no idea, and it was just a very smart NPC pitch. You have no idea. Sometimes it just doesn't work out. They ghost you, whatever. Stuff happens, no worries. But just because you get a job order doesn't mean that you actually have the chance to fill it. So know your job order to placement ratio. I don't have like a target for this because that is very industry specific. What is happening in the economy right now, that's always going to be very fluid, but it's something to keep in mind that it's not a 1-to-1 ratio, never should be. There's always going to be like, sometimes it's going to be a 2-to-1, other times it's going to be a 10-to-1. Or, you're going to go through a phase where like you just fill them all. So
Yeah,
it depends.
Okay.
All right, next up we got for rookies. For rookies, you want to do a 10-to-1 ratio for these following 2 metrics. First one is screening call to interview with a hiring manager. Meaning, as a rookie, you should be aiming for 10 screening calls. And out of those 10 screening calls, ideally all of those translate into submittals that you send over to the hiring manager. But out of those 10 screening calls, one of them should become an interview. Bare minimum. Most of the time, this is going to be a little bit higher. Other times, if you source weird candidates and you start having conversations with them and you're like, oh, I sourced wrong, you can always backtrack and fix it, obviously, but 10-to-1. And then we have interview to placement. For you should aim for 10 interviews as a bare bones rookie recruiter, 10 interviews with the hiring manager for 1 placement. These are going to be, and this is for within one job, not like during the week globally or something like that. It has to be within that job, because if you get 1 submittal in one job and 9 in the other one, that other one is going to move you closer to that placement than that other one. So those are the rookie ones.
Okay. So let's getting started. Let's hear the expert then, and then we'll start to understand the gap between them.
Expert is 5-1, meaning for 5 screening calls, one of them should lead to an interview. That is very doable if you know exactly what you're doing. That should be fairly easy. Again, depending on how crazy the search is, how specific your hiring manager is, you might need a few more, a few less. And then for interview to placement ratio, that is also a 5-1. So 5 interviews with the hiring manager, first round interviews, will lead to 1 placement.
Okay. So significant increase there in the efficiency. And it's one of those like, yeah, that makes sense when you think about, okay, new to the game versus I've been doing this for a while, you know what to look for and everything else. So, okay. So that's good to know. 10-1 and 5-1 is the core of them. And then as you and I both know, man, I'd love to just have people ready to screen right off the bat, but how do we find the right people? How do I get them to even reply back to me? That's almost become one of the harder aspects right now. So moving up the funnel a little bit, how do we think about this, or how do we work that into these ratios?
Yeah. So if you're a rookie recruiter and you're working backwards from the ratios, 1 placement means you need 10 first round interviews, which on a 10-1 ratio means you also need to aim for about 100 screening calls. This is obviously assuming that you have absolutely no idea what you're doing. You're shooting in the dark. So those numbers are going to be inflated. And as you get better, then, and you refine your skills in that, it's not going to be 10-1. But in general, that means you should aim for about 600 to 700 people to source and contact. Please don't do it all at once. Stagger it. You don't want to just find 600 people. If you are a rookie recruiter, always start with about 100 to 200 people. See what you get back in terms of feedback to optimize your outreach. Have those conversations to figure out, are you even talking to the right people? Sometimes you don't figure this out until you actually get on a screening call and you realize, I sourced the wrong people, and you can get back to the drawing board. So the first couple of searches, unless you get lucky, you should be aiming for about 600 to 700 people that you source and contact.
Okay.
Not all at once.
Yeah.
Again, not all at once.
Calibrate. We've talked about that before. Calibrate first.
Yes. Yeah. Now, for experts, to get that 1 placement, that requires 5 first round interviews, and that translates into about 25 screening calls. It sounds like a lot, but you do have to talk to a lot of people, because this is where you're discovering, do they actually fit this? Just because a resume actually makes sense on paper doesn't mean that they know exactly what they're talking about and that the hiring manager is going to move them forward into a first round interview. As an experienced recruiter, you kind of suss these things out, or you've had a working relationship, you know them. So it's really easy to figure that out. But I've had so many screening calls where I get on a call with them, I explain the role to them in more details, and they're like, you know what, I actually have zero interest in this. It sounded interesting, but now that I know what the day-to-day in the weeds looks like, I'm good. Or, you know what, I don't like the office location. Sometimes you don't cover all of these things via back and forth via messaging. Sometimes you just jump on the screening call, you share the job details, you ask them a couple of questions and have this like back and forth. So it doesn't always work out. You do have to aim for a lot of screening calls, and that's how you get to know people and what the market is like. So that means you need about 150 to 200 people that you need to source and contact to meet these ratios.
Okay. And that's a like that. Yeah. When you're doing it properly, you know, you've done the pattern matching, you understand what you're looking for. Yeah, that fully plays in, but it's so interesting seeing these numbers on paper. You know, it's like, oh, I'm going to make a hire. But then as you start to look at the experience and skill sets of the people, it's like, okay, well, how many interviews? 5 to 10, depending on the range. Well, how many screens do I need to make? 25 to 100. And you start to see this gap that just keeps getting wider and wider up to, what do you say, 150, 175 compared to 650, like big range there. So definitely some aspirational stuff to want to level yourself up and know that, like, as you get better, you absolutely will get more efficient. It will get easier. And this makes sense when you look at the people who've been doing this for a while. It's like, how are they making so much money, or why is it so much easier for them? It's like, well, they've got their system down, but also they can work more jobs, or they can go through them quicker because their efficiencies are so great from the underlying knowledge, skill sets, pattern recognition that they've got. But it's just become this exponential curve versus what many think is a linear or a stair step to get better curve.
And it's always going to fluctuate. You're never going to always be at like a 5-1 ratio, even at an expert level. It's there's differences in how the market is responding. And even you as a recruiter, if you branch out into a new niche or something changes, things like that, there's always differences that start happening. So this is something to always aim for and have as a golden star, so that you know, do I need to put more effort into this particular search, or can I kind of reallocate my resources and move to the other one because I've reached my minimum target here in terms of my ratios. I can kind of like focus on the search a little bit more and then kind of like go back and forth.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, this is great. Okay. This is helpful. I'm excited to start to unpack this more with you as the weeks go on, just to like, okay, how do we improve screening to interview stage? How do we, all of the fun stuff, as we said, like we want to make these episodes as tactical as possible so everyone can learn, can level up. We can get more people from rookies to expert. We can get experts to become super duper experts. But yeah, so stay tuned for next week. We'll keep going. Thanks as always for joining, Viv.
Sounds good. Bye, everybody.
Bye.